This is the journey of the final stretch of the Spine of Albion, which stretches from the Isle of Wight to the most northerly part of the Scottish mainland, Faroe Head. The whole journey took 9 years, and the videos of previous stretches can be found on this channel. Unfortunately, most of the original sequences were lost, because towards the end of the trip, the video cards somehow got corrupted. This is a great pity, because Gary and Caroline's narratives were particularly good. So I apologise particularly to them. The script for this video is mostly from their book, The Spine of Albion. Our first visit was to the beautiful Loch Inch, next to the town of Kincraig. Its ethereal setting, surrounded by Scots pine trees, and with a white church overlooking the scene on a tall mound. The present church building is not old, but local legend says the site was sacred to the Druids, later built over by the Chaldees as a place of worship. Its dedication is to Saint Adamnan, and judging from its northwest-southeast orientation, this mound may have been a platform for the Druids to honour the summer solstice. Saint Adamnan, Saint Columba's biographer, would have preached here. The marshy terrain of the surrounding landscape may indicate that the church once stood on an island. The only surviving remnant of its antiquity is an ancient granite bowl, possibly used for baptism, and a damaged bronze bell displayed in the church. The bell has wrought iron supports in the form of doves, and could be associated with Saint Columba, as his name means dove. This ancient relic is reputed to have healing properties, and according to the local legend, must never leave the church. On one occasion, when taken to Perth for safekeeping, the bell rang without aid, perpetually producing a sound that seemed to call the words Tom Unan, the name of the sacred hill on which the church stands, so it was duly returned. The Clava Cairns, also known as the burial cairns of Balnekeil, are smaller versions of the passage tombs that make up the Newgrange complex in Ireland. They overlook the Moray Firth on an area of land formed by the Great Glen Fault. Balls of light or plasma are often witnessed emerging from such faults, which early tribes may have revered as the manifestations of the earth spirit, marking the site where they appeared with stone monuments. The Great Glen Fault is the result of a massive collision during a tremendous cataclysm between the land masses millions of years ago. It runs southwest northeast, almost exactly in line with the winter solstice sunset and the summer solstice sunrise. The enigmatic Loch Ness is part of this fault, famous not only for its monster, but also for the many paranormal events that occur there, including floating balls of light. Several node points on the Spine of Albion occur over geological faults, drawing on a fountain of telluric energy produced during movements and stress in the Earth's crust. The Clava Cairns actually stand upon a ridge formed by a secondary fault of the Great Glen Fault. Often these minor faults produce more plasma because the larger faults released their built-up energy more efficiently. For example, minor faults in the Arizona and in North America produce more light ball activity than the Great San Andreas Fault in California. Jenny Randalls, in her book Time Travel, mentions an interesting time slip which occurred here. She writes, researcher Joan Foreman was approached by a woman from Norfolk, who in May 1973 had visited the Clava Cairns. She rested against one of the stones to relax, drink in the quiet, and entered a sort of daydream or reverie. In other words, she altered her natural state of consciousness. Now she heard muffled sounds from the circle site, of people shouting and struggling, then saw a group of figures hauling a huge monolithic stone across the ground. Suddenly a noise intruded from the 20th century as a group of tourists arrived in the field. This caused the time bridge to be withdrawn. The vision and sounds all disappeared. This could also apply to the Loch Ness Monster on the same fault line, which could be a time-slip vision of an aquatic dinosaur. A similar creature has been seen below the surface in Crater Lake, Oregon, USA. The Clava Cairns are enclosed within a beautiful wooded glade next to the Nairn River, imbuing the site with nourishing quay. All three cairns have central circular chambers, but only two have passages leading to them. They are unique in that each includes an outer circle of standing stones, originally consisting of 12 in all. Unfortunately, because the site was once used as a quarry, the central chambers of the cairns are now open to the elements. Note that there seem to be a large number of multiple trunk trees surrounding the area. Dowsing indicated that Belinus enters from the southwest, passing through all three monuments. Elen enters from the southeast, forming a node with Belinus inside the most northerly cairn. We then walked to the nearby stone foundations of a chapel at Milton of Clava, next to an ancient route that leads to the Black Isle and Northern Highlands. The information board could tell little about the chapel's history, except its possible mode of construction using the stones of a large cairn. Its northeast-southwest orientation, similar to the church at Loch Inch, indicates a place of worship of the early Chaldees. A standing stone still survives near the foundations of the chapel, perhaps part of a stone circle that once surrounded the former cairn. Having travelled along the axis of the chapel, Elen crosses with Belinus at its east end. While researching the chapel in Inverness Library, Gary discovered its former dedication was to Saint Bridget, the Christian aspect of Bride, the goddess of the Celts. While travelling into Inverness by bus from the airport, I noticed what appeared to be a group of standing stones at a place called Tornagrain. I found out later that this is a new town founded in 2015. The standing stones at Tornagrain, which have been named Curvy, Sunbathing Stone and Dynamite, will eventually stand in the heart of the new village. The stones, which were unveiled in 2015, have been designed to look similar to the famous Clava Cairns nearby. John Stewart, Earl of Moray, Helen Carmichael, Provost of Inverness, and MSP Fergus Ewing, as they cut the inaugural ribbon to mark the start of works. The granite boulders, each weighing more than 10 tons, were picked out from the Park Quarry near Nairn by the Moray family and will eventually stand in the town square at Tornagrain. Lord Moray said, "Standing stones have been part of the landscape for many centuries in Scotland, particularly in the north. We thought this would be an appropriate way to mark the start of what is very much a new community, but one which builds upon the best traditions of design over the past centuries in some of our best-loved communities." It would be interesting to see if these are subconsciously sited on any lay. From the Culloden battle site, both currents pass separately through the grounds of Castle Stewart, just to the east of Alturley Point. This whole region, including the castle and church, was once in the possession of James Stewart, the illegitimate half-brother of Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary granted him the title of Earl of Moray, and for a time he appeared loyal to his half-sister. However, he was quick to betray her to her enemies after the murder of her second husband, Lord Darnley. The site of Petty Church has been a place of worship since the time of St. Columba, previously a Chaldee's cell. A local legend says that in AD 565, St. Columba founded a church here, having sailed into the Bay of Petty after a storm raised by the magical machinations of King Bredai's druid. St. Columba, it seems, upset King Bredai at his royal court in Inverness, after he sought permission to carry the light of the gospel throughout his kingdom. Having survived the storm, he apparently built the church on the spot, where God had steered him to safety. The female current arrives from the direction of the castle, through the Macintosh clan vault in the churchyard, avoiding the church completely. She goes to the boundary hedge, where there is a mound or motte in a private garden. Belinus travels along the east-west axis of the church to form a node with Elen on the mound. The origin of the mound is a mystery. Many such mounds have marked node points on the Belinus alignment. Next day we crossed the Moray Firth to the Black Isle, a peninsula which could have been named after its black fertile soil or dark occult practices said to have gone on here. Its landscape is different from the rest of the Highlands, with soft undulating hills and lush wooded valleys. There are numerous chambered tombs and cairns here. Our first visit was to Munlochy Clootie Well, originally dedicated to St. Boniface, a 7th century Bishop of Ross. The islanders still honour the old pagan custom of hanging pieces of cloth or clute on branches of the trees overhanging this healing spring. However, this is not on either of the Spine of Albion currents. We continued on to Fortrose, famous for its ruined cathedral dedicated to Saints Peter and Boniface. It's on a sharp profusion of land called Inverness, overlooking the Moray Firth towards Culloden. Founded by King David I, it fell into ruin in the 17th century. It was one of the perpetual choirs written about by John Michel. The Belinus current passes through the old high altar at the east end. It also goes through the old south chapel and tomb of Euphemia, Countess of Ross. Tradition blames the cathedral's demise on Cromwell's soldiers, who took many of the stones to build a citadel in Inverness. There seems to be bullet holes in some of the stonework, perhaps for target practice or executions. Returning to the Moray Firth, Ellen introduces us to a memorial stone at Chanonry Point, just over a kilometre away from Fortrose, erected in memory of a 17th century local prophet known as the Brian Seer, who predicted the Battle of Culloden. According to local legend, he was burned to death at this very spot in a barrel of flaming tar, having insulted the wife of the Earl of Seaforth, chief of the Mackenzie clan. His ghastly demise was the result of a request by the Countess of Seaforth to predict the clandestine activities of her husband during a business trip. He misguidedly described his vision of the unfaithful Earl in front of a great gathering of her friends and family. There is an omphalos stone in Inverness which may be connected to him. The village of Rosemarkie lies on the northern shores of Chanonry Ness, nestling next to an attractive sandy beach. The cliffs above draped with creepers and lined with trees. Next to the beach, Ellen passes through a graveyard and church, the former site of a very large Pictish settlement. This important Pictish centre attracted the attention of both St. Moluag and St. Boniface, who built an early Chaldee Christian settlement here in the 7th century. The nearby Grome House Museum displays many of the Pictish stones unearthed in and around the village, one adorned with magnificent carvings known as the Soul of Rosemarkie, indicating a highly articulate and cultured community. After passing through the Groom House Museum, Ellen enters the magical wooded valley called the Fairy Glen. The female current follows the fast-flowing river to a magnificent waterfall where the true essence of Elen flourishes in this most beautiful of natural landscapes. This is the Panacea herbalist shop in the High Street, run by Cornelia Hughes. The Elen current misses it, passing through a house 2 doors down. Miss Hughes then revealed that this is her house. The Heritage Centre at Kincardine, by the Dornoch Firth, was once the local church dedicated to St Columba, which until the 1790s was thatched with heather. Belinus passes through this church. It was founded by Tom Haldid, a 7th century monk sent by St Columba. According to local legend, the lairds of Kincardine and Tulloch were in dispute as to whose land should provide the site for a new church. The laird of Tulloch won the day, and construction of the church commenced. However, the builders were constantly hindered by the stones mysteriously moving at night by some unseen hands to Kincardine. After several more occurrences, both lairds accepted this as a sign from God, and Kincardine became the site of the new church. Inside the Heritage Centre is an exquisitely carved stone, said to be one of the finest examples of northern Pictish art. Carved in the 8th century, it includes images of David saving a lamb from the jaws of a lion, with his harp nearby. A later crude carving on the stone suggests that at one time it served as a grave slab. Elen follows the Shin Valley to the picturesque town of Lairg. On the hills surrounding the town are many prehistoric hut circles, mounds, cairns and chambered tombs, the most concentrated being on Ord Hill. Elen passes through the parish church and a graveyard which was once the site of a Pictish settlement, and an early church dedicated to Saint Maelrubber, a Culloden monk who is the patron saint of Lairg. Belinus goes over Ord Hill. We did not have time to visit the sites, but the visitor centre was full of information, including that of an ancient asteroid impact here. Three large Neolithic stone-covered chambered cairns dominate Ord Hill. The Belinus current passes through 2 of them, and skimming the edge of the central cairn, the largest of them measuring 90 feet in diameter. Finally we arrived at Balnekeil Church near Durness, an ethereal place where people visit and never want to leave. John Lennon spent many summers here with his aunt before the Beatles started, and the lyrics for the song "In My Life" were inspired by it. This is the final node point of Belinus and Elen before they head out to sea towards the Faroe Islands from Faroe Head, a dragon-shaped peninsula visible from the church ruins. The ruins fall exactly on the alignment as it reaches the most northerly point of the British Isles, and each current enters the building through one of the gables. The present ruins date to 1619, but the Culloden priest Saint Raelbubba originally founded it in AD 720. the final node of the Spine of Albion, crossing in front of a tomb set into a recess in the south wall, next to a damaged ancient font.